Good morning. These were the top selling car brands in 2023 in the United States through November of last year. The Ford F-Series pickup trucks were far and away the most popular vehicle sold, more than twice as many as number 2 on the list, Toyota's RAV4. Ford shows up again at number 10 with the Ford Explorer. Toyota has 5 of the top 10 spots for 2023. But the Ford Explorer is the most expensive vehicle with a base price of $37,000 or so. Here are the numbers so far for 2024. Ford pickups are number 1 again. The Ford Explorer is at number 14. The Ford Transit is actually a cargo van, not a passenger van. It's at 18. And at number 25 is the Ford Maverick, which is another pickup truck. So Ford dominates in the sales of the highest priced vehicles, which are pickup trucks and commercial vans, and their Explorer is an SUV. They don't show up at all in the top 25 for sales of sedans or other passenger cars. That's the first big takeaway. The second is that Ford dominates in sales segments that Chinese manufacturers are not big in, not yet anyway. So these high tariffs and import bans that we have on Chinese cars coming into North America, they don't really help Ford Motor at all. Ironically, the American tariffs on Chinese cars are helping Japanese car makers more than Ford. They're the ones who would go out of business first, head-to-head against affordable Chinese vehicles. This is from the Wall Street Journal, and as we go through it, it's tempting to think that Ford is in the same jam as other car makers like Volkswagen or Toyota and General Motors. But it's not true. If tariffs went away tomorrow, Ford would probably still be fine, at least for a while, because of the market segments they're in. But what Ford Motor is doing here is very clever. The other legacy car makers are in survival mode and living on borrowed time, which will run out as soon as Chinese car makers are allowed to get into their markets. But Ford is trying to build on the advantages they've already got. It doesn't matter who you are. You may be a small business owner or a mid-level executive or the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar multinational company. Your first visit to China will change you. You'll change your mind about a great many important things when you see for yourself the supply chains and the logistics and the massive Chinese port operations. That leads to big decisions, whereby you're forced to either reimagine ways to compete against Chinese companies or imagine new ways to cooperate with them. Jim Farley is CEO of Ford Motor Company, and on his trip to China, he learned it was a waste of time to compete against China at all on electric cars, anywhere in the world. And he also gave up competing in the passenger vehicle segment in China. He says Chinese car makers are moving much faster, using technology we don't even have in the US market, and they have access to low-cost supply chains that kill us on price and that they're expanding everywhere. Farley bought some Chinese electric vehicles and shipped them to Michigan so his leadership team could see for themselves. The first model was from Xiaomi, which didn't even make cars at all until a few years ago. Xiaomi is a manufacturer of cell phones and home electronics mainly, and already Xiaomi is building a car that looks like a Porsche at a fourth of the price and way below Ford's electric Mustang. Ford also brought in an electric minivan from Li Auto, and Ford's executives said riding in that thing was like traveling in business class. So Farley's strategy here is to show Ford's leadership that China is already so far ahead in sports cars and passenger vans that it's a waste of time to even try. Remember though, Ford isn't really there. They're pickup trucks and commercial vans, and they've got one SUV, the Explorer. This is a chart of vehicle sales globally. The orange line is China. So far, Chinese electric vehicles have been kept out of the US market, but in Mexico, they went from basically 0 to 20% of that market. Same story in Europe, 0 to 1/5. Here, Farley says Chinese electric vehicles are a long-term risk to Ford in North America. So why would that be? given Ford's product mix and market segments? And what should Farley and Ford Motor do about it? The answer is here. Ford did try to build and sell an electric pickup truck, the Lightning, but it's selling poorly. Lightnings have an MSRP of around $70,000. Poor sales in the Lightning division caused many observers to conclude that there is no market for electric pickup trucks. But BYD is a Chinese company, and they introduced a hybrid pickup truck for the Mexico market. The BYD Shark is around $50,000, and it's selling well. So there is a market for an energy-efficient pickup truck for North America, but not at $70,000. The price point needs to be lower. If BYD is selling hybrids at $50,000, they're taking market share from Ford in Mexico. Lots of those sales would otherwise be Ford's, and that's Farley's problem. So he needs to build an electric pickup truck or a hybrid for $20,000 less than what they're doing over at Lightning, and nobody at Ford knows how. While Farley was here, he watched some technicians rip apart a BYD. The teardown revealed elegant, low-cost engineering. The exact opposite of what Ford does, in other words. So in order to fight against BYD and the other Chinese makers, he needs to borrow from them. Now, Ford has some big advantages right now. Chang'an is Ford's joint venture partner here in China, and it is a strong relationship. Farley and his CFO are at Chang'an, and they're driving around some of Chang'an's models. A common criticism of Chinese engineering and China's innovation is that the Chinese brands simply reverse engineer everything that smart companies in the United States or in Europe or in Japan are doing, and then mass produce at a lower cost to take markets. That is not true anymore, in most industries anyway, and that's another thing that visitors here can see for ourselves when we tour factory floors and just talk with people. Farley knows a lot about cars, an encyclopedic knowledge of car models, says here, and he says these guys are way ahead of us. There's no point in trying to do at Ford what Ford's partners are already doing at Chang'an. So they gave up completely on Ford's ambitions in China, and now their strategy is to use China to export vehicles to global markets. Farley vowed to apply lessons learned in China everywhere else. Farley believes that his group working on the EV tech will get Ford's costs under control, and Ford's expertise in trucks, off-road, and commercial vehicles and vans are going to carry them through. His engineers here are wrestling with how to build a new electric mid-size pickup truck, and they're trying to save an extra $800 in the manufacturing process. They found $500 in savings by increasing the driving range, which implies a smaller battery will be needed. Now they're trying to find where to cut another $300 from, while still keeping most of the features that buyers will want. But this is an important tell, and Ford is showing us their hand here. Remember, Ford needs to find $20,000 in cost savings, not $800. $800 in savings isn't going to move the needle very much for buyers in the United States market. Ford's plan then is to build their electric pickup trucks in China to export to the rest of the world. Ford needs to show their partners at Chang'an Motors how to build and brand a high-quality electric pickup that they can sell against BYD. And it's up to the guys at Chang'an to figure out supply chain and mass production. And in that fight, the $800 difference is going to make a big difference. This is Hunan Province, the Gaoyi Mountain Scenic Area, outside Chenzhou. Be good.
We pray that your Spirit is poured out, that billion people are saved and brought to faith in Jesus Christ. We pray that you bring mentors and disciples, family, to lead us the way.